What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back with a free agency video. Today is the first day of true free agency. The past 2 days were legal tampering days, but we're going to be going through all of the team's transactions and not really grading them, but just analyzing what each team has done so far in this free agency period. We're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, and they released Marcus Golden and Robbie Anderson, who now goes by Chosen Anderson. They re-signed tackle Kelvin Beachum. They signed Kaiser White from the Eagles, inside linebacker. They signed Matt Prater, kicker. They signed Matt Prater, Corey Clement, a backup running back, and guard Will Hernandez. So they really did not make that much of a splash. The Atlanta Falcons, they re-signed edge Lorenzo Carter, which they need all the help they can get when it comes to front seven. They traded with the Patriots for Jonnu Smith. I think that's a good move. A lot of Kyle Pitts fans aren't going to like that one, but running a 2 tight end system, Arthur Smith, Jonnu Smith, I don't know. I don't think it's terrible. They got him for a 7th round pick, so I think he's a better player than a 7th round pick would get. They re-signed Chris Lindstrom to a big deal, 5 years, $105 million. For a guard, I'm not convinced that that's a value deal. They went and signed Jesse Bates. That's their splash play of this free agency. We all knew Jesse Bates would be gone from the Bengals, but they went out and got him. 4 years, $64 million is a lot for a safety, but Jesse Bates is a really, really good safety, and they really needed some secondary help. And then went and signed Taylor Heinicke to, I guess, give a quarterback competition. Taylor Heinicke can be serviceable, so if Desmond Ridder really is not the answer and he is just horrible, then Taylor Heinicke will be that guy. They re-signed Caleb McGarry as well, so 2 huge linemen were kept in Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry. Caleb McGarry was signed 3 years, $34.5 million. On to the Baltimore Ravens, who haven't really done that much, and that would be the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, which that's to be determined on what's going to happen with him. They released Calais Campbell, who had a great year for being an older guy. So a little puzzling there, but he's pretty old now. So it's not far-fetched for them to do that at all. On to the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills re-signed some guys that we did not think they were going to re-sign. Today, the big one was re-signing Jordan Poyer down here. Matt Milano, we knew was going to come back, but Poyer, I did not think one bit would come back. There were even rumors that he could be a Dolphin, but I'm sure after the Jalen Ramsey stuff that they're not really in the cap situation to bring on a big contract like Poyer. The other moves they made, they signed Connor McGovern, which was a big one because their guard play this past year was horrible, and now that takes them a little bit less out of the conversation for drafting a guard like Osiris Torrance in the first. They could still do that because they just had horrible interior offensive line play, and protecting Josh Allen should be a priority. But Connor McGovern's a good pickup there. 3 years, $23 million. I love that one. Deontay Hardy is kind of a utility receiver. He was a former Saint, 2 years, $9.5 million. See what they can do with him. Maybe they can turn him into more of a weapon than he was on the Saints. He wasn't really utilized. I think he only had 2 catches this past year. But who knows? Maybe they can do more with him. So, the Carolina Panthers. They signed Shy Tuttle. They signed Von Bell from the Bengals. It's a big one. They kept Bradley Bozeman around. I'm not a fan of that one really, but I don't hate it. They signed Andy Dalton, which I actually like because he played serviceably last year, and having a vet in the room for whoever they take at 1, I believe is a very important thing to do. They went and took Hayden Hurst from the Bengals, so there goes Von Bell and Hayden Hurst from the Bengals. They also, at the end of the day, brought in Miles Sanders, which I believe that people gave him a little bit less credit than maybe deserved just because he was in a committee running back situation on the Eagles, but he's a really good running back, and they are a big run team. They love running the football, and they do it very well. So Miles Sanders will be used for sure with Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, and I like that pickup a lot. So they brought in a few really good Von Bell, Hayden Hurst and Miles Sanders, I really like those pickups, and I really like those pickups, and I'd be encouraged if I was a Panthers fan after today. The Chicago Bears, funnily enough, the team they traded with. The Bears, we know they got DJ Moore in the trade for the number 1 overall pick that actually officially went through today. They went and got TJ Edwards. Not only did they get one middle linebacker, they went out and got Tremaine Edmonds, 4-year, $72 million from the Bills. Edmonds, big guy, very versatile, could almost slide him to safety, strong safety. But they paid a lot of money for these guys. I don't know if you needed to go get Edmonds and Edwards, especially when you paid Edmonds what you could have paid Roquan Smith. And Roquan Smith is arguably better in coverage. So why not just hold on to him? Obviously, things change as time goes on. Maybe they weren't expecting to be in the position to go get Edmonds. But that's very puzzling. They went and got Nate Davis from the Titans, a really good interior offensive lineman. I like that move a lot. Really bolster that line. That's a big need. Justin Fields was running for his life last year. The Cincinnati Bengals re-signed safety Michael Thomas, not the one you're thinking about, and re-signed Jermaine Pratt, linebacker. It's a good signing. And at the end of the day today, made the biggest signing of their offseason. They brought in Orlando Brown Jr. from the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. We know they've really been trying to bolster that O-line, and they kind of struck out last offseason trying to do that with La'el Collins. But they bring in Orlando Brown to make their final big splash attempt to get this O-line right around Joe Burrow. Staying in the division, the Cleveland Browns have had a sneaky, really good offseason. We all knew their very big weakness was the run defense and that front seven, and they went out and got Dalvin Tomlinson, who's a very good defensive tackle. He throws dudes around. Got him from the Vikings, signed him 4 years, $57 million. Signed edge Ogbonia Okoronkwo. I always botch that name, but 3-year, $22 million from the Texans. The dude has a bag of pass rush moves and is very exciting. Him and Myles Garrett on opposite sides could be lethal. And I'm a Steelers fan, so it's pretty scary to see. The Dallas Cowboys went ahead and franchise tagged Tony Pollard. Completely deserved. I believe he was so much better than Ezekiel Elliott was. And he's one of my favorite running backs to watch in the league. His burst is crazy. Super excited to see what he does, getting most of the touches in Dallas. They went ahead and re-signed Donovan Wilson, also a very good move, like that a lot. They went and traded a 5th for Stephon Gilmore from the Colts. Now, Gilmore is older, but this is still a great piece to have on the team, and they really needed corner help. Now you can shift Bland to the nickel. Re-signed Leighton Vander Esch, which was kind of unexpected. We thought he would be on a different team. I was hoping the Steelers, but Leighton Vander Esch is back for 2 years, $11 million. Not very much at all for the caliber of player he is. They went ahead at the end of the day today and released Ezekiel Elliott. The end of an era in Dallas. He really took it to my Steelers every time he saw us. So that was always rough, but what an electric player. The Denver Broncos really spent their money this offseason so far. They went ahead and signed Ben Powers from the Titans. 4-year, $52 million. Which is a huge guard contract, that's been a common occurrence so far this offseason. They signed Jared Stidham, backup quarterback from the Raiders, who played a couple really good games. 2 years, $10 million, that's a very cheap contract. He's also a very good backup quarterback. They got Mike McGlinchey, 5 years, $87 million from the 49ers. I think that's such an overpay, it's ridiculous. Zach Allen was a big signing from the Cardinals. He played extremely well, and the Cardinals are in a rough spot after losing their only really... And the Cardinals are in a rough spot after losing their main contributor on defense last year. So 3-year, $45 million on the Broncos. He is a really good D lineman, and they should be very glad to get him. The Detroit Lions have heavily addressed corner this offseason so far, which is kind of changing how I'm thinking about their draft strategy. They went out and got Cameron Sutton who I expected to re-sign with the Steelers. I'm kind of surprised the Steelers wouldn't pay him $11 million a year. So they got him for 3 years, $33 million, and got Emmanuel Mosley from the 49ers for $6 million for 1 year. I think that addresses corner a lot. They're hoping that some other guys will have progression. I don't think they'll pick corner now at pick 6. I think this could be signifying that they're going a different direction with pick 6. David Montgomery wrapped up their day of free agency. Brought him in for 3 years, $18 million. I think that may be a little high for Montgomery. I truly believe that Khalil Herbert was the best running back on that team. There's not much to touch on for the Green Bay Packers, but they re-signed Keyshawn Nixon. A year, $4 million. He was a dynamic returner, both in kick and punt returns, and they re-signed Tyler Davis. So, that's all the Packers did so far. I am a huge fan of what the Texans have done and what DeMeco Ryans has cooked up so far this offseason. Bringing in veteran receiver Robert Woods, I understand he was a horrible addition for that Titans team. He didn't produce anything, but having a veteran in a young room of receivers is very important, and the effect he has on teaching these guys is more effective than what he does on the field. So I love that pickup. I also love the Jimmy Ward pickup from the 49ers, being a veteran DB, bringing him into a room of, again, very young guys. Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, coaching these guys up. He's still a contributor like he was last year on that 49ers team. And DeMeco Ryans is familiar with him, familiar with his game, and really likes him apparently, so brought him in. They went and got Sheldon Rankins today from the Jets, interior defensive line. They desperately need it, and they went and got it. They signed Noah Brown for a $2.6 million contract. I get it, he's not that good. He played on the Cowboys last year. But having some depth at receiver never hurts, and especially for that cheap. And bringing some interior offensive line help here is going to be a big one. They traded, I believe it was a 6th and a 7th. It was some very late draft picks to Tampa Bay for Shaq Mason here. The Indianapolis Colts, they re-signed EJ Speed and Tyquan Lewis. I like EJ Speed a lot. His game is very intriguing to me. They went out and got Matt Gay. 4-year, $22.5 million contract for a kicker. Looks crazy. They signed Samson Ebukam. I believe a big reason was the loss of Bobby Okereke. And Okereke was a big contributor on that pass rush, so they needed to bring in another guy. The Jacksonville Jaguars didn't make too much of a splash, but they decided to bring back CJ Beathard, and they put a franchise tag on Evan Ingram, which we expected. Doug Peterson loves his tight ends. They re-signed Roy Robertson-Harris, some interior defensive help, gave him $10 million a year, which to me was a bit much. And they re-signed Andrew Wingard for a pretty cheap deal, 3 years, $9.6 million. The Kansas City Chiefs have had a couple lateral moves that have been a little bit confusing to me. They let both of their starting tackles go. Orlando Brown to the Bengals and Andrew Wiley to the Commanders. And they went and got Jawan Taylor from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jawan Taylor, pretty good tackle, but not 4-year, $80 million worth tackle, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far. So this one's confusing to me because Mahomes is your franchise, and you don't want to give up your big protectors. I get that those guys weren't these upper echelon kind of offensive tackles, but throwing 2 new guys into that system after a Super Bowl is going to be a very challenging thing to do. They also released Frank Clark. This one makes sense. He's a bit older and wants a bigger contract. Makes sense. They went and got Charles Omenihu. I really like that addition. They got 2 years incentive-based contract with $20 million. Omenihu was a beast on the 49ers and is going to be a beast for the Chiefs. They really always need pass rush help. It seems like a yearly theme with them. They could win a Super Bowl, but they just need pass rush help. And releasing Frank Clark opened a hole for Omenihu, and I think Omenihu is probably an upgrade, honestly. After throwing away a game, Jacoby Myers is now a Raider. Threw the ball to him from the Patriots, gave him a game. Now he's a Raider. What's going on here? Just kidding. But Marcus Epps was also a sign. The biggest one is Jimmy Garoppolo, now a Raider on a 3-year, $67.5 million contract. To me, it's pretty lateral from the Derek Carr quarterback situation. I think he's a good stop because I don't know if they'll be in the situation to pick a quarterback. But if they are, they can really have a mentor, a really good mentor. So I'm not mad at the Jimmy G situation after Derek Carr left. The Los Angeles Chargers haven't made much noise so far. They brought in Eric Kendricks from the Vikings. Seems like all these Vikings defensive players are getting old and dispersing across the league. Eric Kendricks another for 2 years, $13.25 million. They re-signed quarterback Easton Stick, backup. Re-signed Trey Pipkins and Morgan Fox. The Los Angeles Rams acquired via trade Hunter Long from the Dolphins. They sent Jalen Ramsey for a third-round pick and Hunter Long in return. Now, why specifically Hunter Long? I will never know. Very weird package to get back, in my opinion. You could have gotten a lot of other positions you're way more needy of, but Hunter Long it is. Maybe they know something we don't. And Hunter Long along with a third-round pick. And then they released Leonard Floyd, who is now getting older and not really contributing as much. They need some cap relief, so makes sense to me. The Miami Dolphins have had a very tactical offseason so far, addressing big positions of need, corner being one of those. They were very injured last year, and even when they weren't, there were some guys that weren't playing how they were supposed to. Xavier Howard had a down year. Byron Jones is going to be out of the league. They were relying on some very late draft picks to be playing some important situations, and Kader Kohou being the Kader Kohou having to play a lot is a problem. He played way above what he was supposed to, but you do not need these very inexperienced late round draft picks to be playing significant time. And they addressed that by trading a third round pick and Hunter Long to the Rams for 29-year-old Jalen Ramsey, who still has a couple years of prime left on him, in my opinion. Great trade for them. Only a third rounder astonishes me. And I think that this is huge for the Dolphins, and they are attacking their Super Bowl window right now with addressing their big defensive needs. They also signed backup quarterback Mike White, and we know this is important because we saw how thin quarterback can be with the 49ers and the Dolphins in the playoffs. The Dolphins were down to 7th round pick Skylar Thompson in a playoff game that they almost won in Buffalo. So Mike White definitely an upgrade over Skylar Thompson. $8 million a year, 2 years, $16 million. Very happy with that signing. Honestly, you need depth at quarterback. We saw it. So Mike White is a good pickup there. I made a statement going into this offseason that the Dolphins would probably scrap the running back room and bring in some fresh guys. They did the exact opposite. They re-signed Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson and kept their little duo together. It looks like Mike McDaniel liked them a lot last year, so they kept them together. They signed Eric Saubert. No big deal. Duke Riley came in. David Long from the Titans. That is a very good middle linebacker that they needed, and having him for $5.5 million a year seems like a value deal to me. This is going to be a painful one for the Vikings fans, but this is a year of releasing veterans and kind of reworking this roster to hopefully keep a sort of playoff run window open. Releasing Adam Thielen. The Minnesota story is beautiful. You hate to see this as a Vikings fan, surely. Releasing Eric Kendricks, also veteran player, has contributed so much to this franchise. Cam Dantzler got waived. I don't really think he should have been waived, but again, he has played pretty poorly. Signed Marcus Davenport, a 1-year, $13 million deal from the Saints. Marcus Davenport had a half a sack last year. I would not be so excited at this one. They went ahead and re-signed a bunch of players that to me are kind of mid. They brought Garrett Bradbury back when he was not good at all. Greg Joseph, keep the kicker, no problem with it. The biggest sign for them, I like this one a lot. They signed Byron Murphy from the Arizona Cardinals. He's a very versatile corner and will be very good in this new scheme. I like this a lot for the Vikings, so good pickup there. 2 years, $22 million. He's getting the Cam Sutton $11 million a year. And I think he may be worth a little bit more than Cam Sutton. I like Byron Murphy a lot. I've liked him since he played at Washington, and I think that's a good pickup for the Vikings. The New England Patriots, they surprisingly re-signed Jonathan Jones for $10 million a year. It's great for the quality of boundary corner that he is. I believe that's very underpaid. They went and brought in Riley Reef, good tackle. They also signed Jabril Peppers for a 1-year deal. He's getting a little bit older for a safety. I like that deal, though. They brought in today Juju Smith-Schuster, $11 million a year, 3-year, $33 million, which is ironically the exact same amount that Jacoby Myers got paid by the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that's a little disrespectful, and I do personally think that Jacoby Myers is a better receiver than Juju is, so it doesn't make much sense to me, but maybe they like Juju better. The New Orleans Saints brought in Derek Carr for 4 years, $150 million, only $60 guaranteed, and they do have an out after 2 years. I don't really know why, because their window isn't really there, and they're in a cap disaster. But hey, if they want to keep competing in a very weak division, I get it. Keep the culture up. They kept Michael Thomas. I was actually a little bit surprised on this one. They paid him 1 more year for $10 million. He isn't going to get much more than that for how much he is injured. The other one I'll highlight is Jamal Williams, who led the league in rushing touchdowns last year for 3-year, $12 million deal. It's a good piece to have behind Alvin Kamara. And Kamara gets hurt, so Jamal Williams is a good alternative there. Not a bad offseason for the Saints. I just don't think there's much direction with this team. They don't really have a window to go through, so they need a franchise quarterback, and Derek Carr, I fear, will not be that. The New York Giants were one of the very hot topics of this offseason, knowing that they had to pick between Daniel Jones and Saquon to franchise tag and then maybe or maybe not bring back the other. They decided to put the franchise tag, which is only $10 million, on Saquon. I think that's very value and a great move. And then they brought back Daniel Jones for $40 a year. Everyone is quick to scream overpay, even though when everyone else gets paid next time, he will fall right around the average quarterback, about 16th. So I don't really think people are thinking of how the market adjusts, but he's not going to be the number 9 paid quarterback like he is. He will fall right down to the average mark whenever people get paid again. They brought Sterling Shepard back, signed Raheem Nunez-Roches, and Bobby Okereke was the big one here. They haven't had a true edge rusher in so long that's been productive. Obviously, they drafted Kayvon Thibodeau last year, and he had some good games, but not what Bobby Okereke has been. So super excited for that one for them. I also am excited for the Darren Waller trade. Again, that would be, to some people, the big one, but he has been injury prone, which is a scare because a lot of Giants players have been injury prone. But Darren Waller could be a very huge piece in that Giants offense that desperately needs pieces to throw to. The New York Jets re-signed Quinnen Williams' brother, Quincy, who's a very productive linebacker. 3 years, $18 million, only $9 guaranteed. I like the contract. He's a very good player. Also, you keep the brothers together. That's cool. They traded a 7th-round pick for Chuck Clark from the Ravens. Some good depth at safety. Not sure why the Ravens gave him up for only a 7th. Could have got maybe a 5th or 6th, I think. But Chuck Clark, good piece. And went out and signed Alan Lazard for $11 million a year. 4-year, $44 million. This was one of the guys on Aaron Rodgers' wish list, which is not a thing. The Eagles have been forced to navigate a tough situation post-Super Bowl loss with all of these free agents looking for bigger contracts. And I think they've done it brilliantly. And I truly believe in Howie Roseman. He is masterful at his craft. And they were able to bring Brandon Graham back on a $6 million a year deal, which is a really good vet to have. And they were able to bring in Rashad Penny on a super cheap deal. He has been injured, but behind this O-line, Rashad Penny could be one of the best running backs in the NFL. I truly believe that. They were also able to bring back James Bradberry for 3 years, $38 million, and they were able to, at the end of the day today, unrelease Darius Slay, which was huge because they were about to be real thin at corner. They were able to fix their little debacle with Darius Slay, and he will be coming back next year. So they got to retain Darius Slay and James Bradberry. The jury's still out on CJ Gardner-Johnson, but if he comes back, their secondary is still intact, and I'm feeling very good about the players they retained versus the players they lost. My Pittsburgh Steelers, we went ahead and released William Jackson to earn $12 million back in the cap, and then signed Patrick Peterson, veteran corner, who played on the Vikings last year and had 5 picks, which is a very productive year at the age 32. We signed him for 2 years, 14 mil, so about 7 mil a year. It actually goes down to about 5.5 without the guaranteed money. We also re-signed DeMonte KZ, who's a very hard-hitting safety I like a lot. True stealer in my mind. We went out and got a guard. Wow, we went and got an O-lineman. Who would have thought? Nate Erbig, he is kind of more a rotational guy. He'll kind of compete for that guard spot. So again, we didn't get a solidified starter, which always disappoints me. But we're paying $4 million a year for him. I can't be that upset. He's played a lot of games for the Titans. He's played a lot of games and kind of proven himself. So I cannot be too upset at this signing. Re-signing Larry Ogunjobi I like a lot. It may be a little strong on the money side. 3 years, 30 mil. That's 10 mil a year is tough. But Ogunjobi's been pretty good. Not the most effective pass rusher, but a really good interior defensive lineman to have. And I think he likes it in Pittsburgh. One of my favorites here was signing Cole Holcomb from the Commanders. And he's a very good run stopper. Again, not very good in pass coverage like Robert Spillane, who we released. Kind of his problem as well. But hopefully he can be a better run stopper than Spillane ever was. And from what I've seen of Cole Holcomb, I am encouraged. It was a big position of need. We needed middle linebacker badly after the Devin Bush situation did not work out. And Cole Holcomb, I do believe, addresses that pretty well. The San Francisco 49ers went out and made a splash, signing Javon Hargrave from the Eagles, who kicked them out of the NFC Championship this past year, to a 4-year, $80 million contract. This gives them Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and Javon Hargrave as their pass rush. I don't want to play the front seven of the 49ers ever. And this is a huge addition. Really bolsters up that front seven even more. So very scary over there. And very scary over there. Very scary over there. They also brought in Sam Darnold, which, again, another team with quarterback issues, injury issues. They got down to Josh Johnson there in that NFC Championship. Not a situation you want to see. And with Brock Purdy's future being questionable because of his injury, they do need some depth. And Sam Darnold played well when he played on the Panthers. Hot take, he played pretty well last year when he started there for the Panthers. The Seattle Seahawks brought Geno back on a 3-year, $75 million deal. Super happy to see him get paid. Geno's career is one of the coolest things to ever see a player go through, being a backup all career, not really panning out early on, and then competing for a spot with Drew Lock, winning the spot, and being a MVP candidate for a lot of the season, even though he kind of faltered towards the end. They went ahead and addressed some interior defensive line, which they desperately needed. That was their clear hole in this roster. They went and got Draymond Jones from the Broncos. I do believe they own the Broncos. And they signed Jaron Reed, 2 years, $10.8 million. They're addressing that defensive interior, and Draymond Jones is that big pickup there. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers surprisingly re-signed Jamel Dean. I don't know why he's listed as a safety here. He is a corner. I was very surprised they brought him back, though. They also brought back Aaron Stinney, guard, and they brought back Anthony Nelson. They went out and signed Baker Mayfield, former number 1 overall pick today, to give Kyle Trask a little competition. I do believe Baker will win that competition. But again, this is like a Saints situation. They have no direction. They're kind of clearing out their cap space now from that Super Bowl window. And this is going to be a steep road to get back to contention, I believe. They brought Levante David back for a year. Good veteran re-sign. But other than that, I'm not too encouraged by the Buccaneers and their path. The Tennessee Titans went ahead and cut Ben Jones and Bud Dupree. Both weren't playing as well at this point in their career. They went out and signed Andre Dillard, though, which is a pretty good tackle for 3 years, $29 million. I wonder if that will change their philosophy when it comes to draft night. They also brought in Arden Key from the Jaguars, who goes in division and was signed 3 years, $21 million. That's a good edge rusher. I've always been an Arden Key fan. They also signed from the 49ers Azeez Al-Shaair. Not sure exactly how to say it, but I believe that was pretty close. 1 year, up to $6 million with guarantees. And those are some good defensive additions. But this team also concerns me with their future direction. They still have Derrick Henry. I'm wondering if they could flip him for some assets as he will be getting older and they can't keep this identity forever. So will be interesting to see what they do with Derrick Henry. The Washington Commanders brought back De'Aaron Payne on a huge 4-year, $90 million deal, making him the second highest paid defensive tackle behind Aaron Donald. They re-signed David Mayo and Danny Johnson. They need corner bad. And they brought in Andrew Wiley from the Chiefs at tackle. They needed O-line horribly. Brought in Nick Gates, former Giant, stays in division at a rival. So they addressed the interior and the tackle position on that offensive line. They brought in Jacoby Brissett to compete with Sam Howell. I like that move a lot. I believe Brissett played very well last year for the Browns when he needed to. And he is a good option to compete with a younger guy. He has some experience. He's played some good football in his career. I like the Cody Barton addition. I'm surprised the Seahawks let him walk, honestly, because they needed middle linebacker desperately. But Cody Barton is now a Washington Commander on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. They released J.D. McKissick and re-signed edge Efe Obada for 1 year, $3 million. So that about wraps up my free agency analysis so far, 3 days in. There's been a lot of big moves, a lot of big names that are going to be on different rosters next year. I'm super excited to see how these guys fit into their new rosters, and we'll be keeping close track of where these guys go in the upcoming days. Thank you so much for watching, and like and subscribe if you're interested in more content.